The deafening roar of an indignant crowd echoes through the Manhattan courtroom. 3 sharp, authoritative strikes of a wooden gavel. Bang, bang, bang. Judge-Defendant Jordan Sterling. In the face of these shocking visual evidences and testimonies regarding the charges of sexual assault against a minor, this court has listened to the full indictment. Before the counsel delivers a final verdict, do you have anything to say in your own defense? The entire space falls into a deathly silence. Only the ticking of the clock on the wall can be heard. Your Honor, throughout this past week, this entire city has judged me based on the suit I wear, based on this short hair and this height. Mrs. Higgins accuses me of using the overwhelming physical strength of a man to humiliate her daughter in a locked room. All of you look at me and see a monster, simply because I do not fit the image of what you expect a woman to be. The steady and rhythmic thud of footsteps against the wooden floor. But there is one variable that every single one of you has overlooked, because you were far too confident in your own prejudices. I stand here today not to beg for your mercy or your compassion, but to show everyone here an undeniable biological fact. I am a woman, Your Honor. A fountain pen clatters loudly onto the floor. A wave of shocked murmurs explodes like a tsunami within the courtroom. My name is Jordan Sterling, 30 years old, a piano teacher, and this is how I calculated the probability for a perfectly staged lie to collapse under the weight of justice. The elevator dings with a sharp, cold strike, the sound of leather shoes thumping against the high-end apartment hallway floor. The characteristic roar of Manhattan streets echoes through the thin window glass. 10 p.m. in New York. The dim yellow hallway lights are not enough to soften the freezing atmosphere hanging in the air. I stop at the door of apartment 402. My right hand grips the leather satchel containing piano scores. My left hand inserts the key. A mechanical click sounds, but before I can turn the handle, a surge of pressure hits from behind. The sound of frantic footsteps, along with a breath, exhaled in pure rage. Mrs. Higgins, screaming in a gravelly, agitated voice, "Stop right there. You piece of trash. You disgusting monster. Did you think you could just slink back into your hole after what you did to my daughter? How much longer did you think you could use this expensive suit to hide your predatory nature?" The thumping of high heels on the carpet. A heavy hand slams violently against the wooden door, creating a loud boom that shakes the entire frame. I slowly turn around. Mrs. Higgins stands there. Her face is a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Her perfectly permed hair is now a disheveled mess. Her eyes are bloodshot, staring at me like a hunter, wanting to tear its prey apart on the spot. Behind her, the hallway begins to come alive. Apartment doors crack open, one head, then two. Within seconds, dozens of neighbors have spilled into the hall, their eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and disgust. I deep and calm voice. "Mrs. Higgins, I suggest you lower your voice and step back. You are making a scene and violating my privacy. Is there a reason you are behaving like a complete psychotic in a public hallway?" Mrs. Higgins, faking tears while pointing a finger directly at my face. Look at him, everyone. Look at this cold, emotionless face. Look at this dignified man in his custom-tailored suit. He sneaked into my daughter's room while she was alone studying. He used his male strength to overpower and violate a 19-year-old girl who didn't stand a chance to resist. My daughter is collapsing completely in that room. She is talking about ending her life because of the disgusting thing this man forced upon her. The murmurs of the crowd flare up like gasoline hitting a fire. The sound of smartphone notifications as live streams start. Insults begin to fly from the gathering crowd. A neighbor indignant voice. "I cannot believe this. He looks so polished and professional, yet he is a predator. You really cannot tell who the monsters are these days." Another person. "Get him out of here. We cannot have a rapist living on the same floor as our kids. You freak. Get out of this building now." I sharp, cold voice. "Mrs. Higgins, your little play is starting to turn into a cheap comedy act. I finished my last lesson at 9:30 across town. I just drove back and came straight up from the garage. I have not been near your daughter's door for a single second tonight. You should be very careful with the words coming out of your mouth right now." Mrs. Higgins charging forward and grabbing my collar with raw aggression. "You are still lying. My daughter never lies about things like this. She told me exactly how you covered her mouth, how you used your body weight to pin her to the floor. Do you have any idea what you have taken from her, you bastard? This building is going to throw you out on the street tonight. Look at you, just a piece of trash masquerading as a gentleman. A heavy object crashes against my door. A neighbor has just thrown a ceramic ashtray, narrowly missing my head. The shouting escalates into a collective roar of fury. Internal monologue. 10 p.m. in Midtown Manhattan. They are hungry for a victim to pity and a villain to burn alive. Mrs. Higgins knows exactly how to play this. She is using their blind outrage like a scalpel to butcher my life. The probability of them believing the truth right now is 0%. When the mob has found its target, reason is the first thing they execute. That is why I choose to stand and watch. Mrs. Higgins, screaming with a triumphant edge. What is the matter? Cat got your tongue. You are starting to realize you are finished, aren't you? The NYPD is on the way, and you won't have a single prayer. You are going to rot in a cell for what you did. Police sirens wail from the street below, growing louder and more rhythmic. Red and blue lights pulse against the hallway windows, creating a suffocating atmosphere like being under torture. I look Mrs. Higgins straight in the eye. My gaze is cold, unwavering. I do not see a grieving mother in those eyes. I see a predator who thinks she has finally closed the trap. She thinks she has won because she has the mob. She thinks this suit, this height, and my silence are the ultimate proof of my guilt. But she made one fatal mistake. In this game of leverage and psychology, I am the one holding the cards. I will let her and this mob push this script to the absolute limit, because I know a simple rule of physics. The higher they climb, the harder the impact when they hit the pavement. The heavy thud of tactical boots charging up the stairs, the sharp static of police radios cutting through the hallway. Officer authoritative voice. Everyone stay back. Step away from the suspect immediately. Jordan Sterling, you are under arrest for the sexual assault of a minor. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Put your hands behind your head. Now. I slowly bring my hands forward with total composure. The cold steel of the handcuffs snaps shut around my wrists with a sharp final click. Mrs. Higgins screaming at the officers. Get him out of here. Don't let him escape. The demon in human skin is finally going where he belongs. I don't even look at her. I don't look at the neighbors throwing insults as I am led away. I walk through the strobe lights and the hate of people who used to smile at me every morning. Deep, heavy piano notes begin to play, ending Chapter 1 in a state of absolute suffocating injustice. The heavy iron door of the interrogation room slams shut, echoing against the stone walls. The ventilation fan on the ceiling whines steadily, a relentless acoustic torture. The rhythmic clicking of a ballpoint pen against the metal table. Click, click, click. Detective gravelly, an exhausted voice. It has been over 2 hours, Jordan Sterling. I suggest you drop that stone-faced act right now. Outside, the entire city of New York is screaming for blood. Your victim, Lily Higgins, is lying in a hospital bed with visible bruises on her wrists and severe psychological trauma. The medical records and her initial testimony are crystal clear. You took advantage of her being home alone to sneak into her room. You used superior male physical strength to restrain her, tear her clothes, and threaten to kill her. That dire, brutal ordeal lasted for 30 minutes. How do you intend to explain away this concrete evidence? The rustle of a thick case file being slammed hard onto the metal table, creating a piercing crash. Detective, 30 minutes is a long time. Long enough for a predator to commit a crime and scrub the traces, long enough to turn an ordinary person into a criminal. But in the world of mathematics and the logic of probability that I live by, the truth is often shorter, rawer, and far more brutal than these meticulously staged, tearful scripts. Detective growling, leaning forward. Don't you dare get philosophical or use those solace numbers here. This is reality. We have an eyewitness, a grieving mother who saw her daughter's terror with her own eyes. We have a ransacked bedroom. And most importantly, we have you. A man standing 5 feet 9 inches tall, physically fit, and highly suspicious with that cold, detached look. Everything fits, Sterling. Everything. The static and whirring of a hard drive as surveillance footage is replayed on a small computer monitor in the room. Look at this screen, detective. Don't look at it with the rage of a father. Look at it with the eyes of an investigator. This is the raw data from the 4th floor hallway camera. Look at the timestamp in the bottom right corner, 8:20:15 p.m., last Friday. Lily Higgins walks up and knocks on my door. Through the lens, you can see she is holding a small device. It is a piano tuner. She claims it is broken and that she has a major exam at the conservatory the next morning. She begs for my help because she knows I am a professional. As a neighbor, I agreed to help. Detective slamming the table authoritatively. And that is exactly when you lured her into the trap, isn't it? You followed her into that room immediately after to carry out your predatory act. No, look closely at the timestamp. Do not blink. I am still standing right at my own threshold. I haven't moved an inch. 8:21:10 p.m. I hand the recalibrated device back to her. She takes it, smiles, and walks away. I immediately turn back, lock my door, and head toward the elevator to get my car for my evening lesson. Look, detective, 8:21:45 p.m. I have already entered the elevator. The total interaction between me and Lily Higgins was barely 30 to 40 seconds. I did not even step over her threshold by a single inch. Now tell me, how does one carry out a 30-minute sexual assault in less than 60 seconds? The detective stands up abruptly, the metal chair dragging across the floor with a piercing screech. Detective, do you think I am a 3-year-old child easily fooled by these numbers? The victim says you covered her mouth tight. You tore her shirt and threatened to snap her neck if she made a sound. The bruises on her arms are undeniable physical evidence. The shredded shirt on the floor is real. If there was only 40 seconds of interaction in the hallway, then how do those things exist in her bedroom? Did you hack the camera system to edit the video? Or do you have some secret passage? The heavy, ragged breathing of the detective in the suffocating space. Internal monologue. I look into the bloodshot eyes of the man across from me. The detective is being sucked into a maze of emotions carefully staged by Mrs. Higgins. In this game of probability, when a hypothesis looks too perfect, too aligned with every prejudice, that is the clearest footprint of a setup. Mrs. Higgins needed a tall, masculine, and cold-looking perpetrator to match the self-inflicted bruises on her daughter's arms. She needed a scapegoat for extortion. And my androgynous appearance was the final piece, the perfect variable they were missing to complete this play. The mob out there doesn't want the truth. They want a demon to stone, and the detective is ready to hand them the first rock. Detective, 40 seconds is not enough to restrain an adult, but it is more than enough for a lie to take shape and spread like a virus. If you choose to believe the calculated tears of a victim over the rigid logic of time and the physical evidence on that camera, then you are turning yourselves into cheap pawns on Mrs. Higgins' chessboard. You are helping her pull off the greatest extortion in the history of this building. Detective threatening voice, punctuating every word. Jordan Sterling, do not test the last of my patience. The public out there wants to hang you from a street lamp right now. If you do not sign this confession to receive the mercy of the law, I will make sure you get the maximum sentence for sexual assault of a minor. You will never see the sun again. The maximum sentence. What a fascinating idea. When you are so eager to punish a non-existent crime to appease the public, you tend to overlook the smallest biological details that are the key to the entire case. Have you ever wondered, detective, why a victim of such a violent assault has 0 traces of my DNA under her fingernails? Why is there not a single strand of my hair, a skin cell, or anything of mine at the crime scene? The detective flips through the pages of the forensic scene report rapidly. Because I simply never touched her. And more importantly than all of that, with my actual biological makeup, carrying out a physical attack using male strength as described in the indictment is a technical impossibility. You are trying to convict a fish for not knowing how to fly, but I will not explain further here. I will save the biggest surprise for the judge and the jury in court. Sound handcuffs clink sharply against the metal table in the silence. Dark, driving music pushes the tension to a peak. I will be completely silent from this moment until I stand before justice. Go ahead and prepare your long indictment, but remember my words today. The more you believe what you see based on your prejudices, the easier you are fooled by what your heart wants to believe is true. The truth does not lie in the bruises, the truth lies in the numbers, and numbers never lie. The interrogation room door slams open, the heavy thud of other officers stepping in to escort me away, ending Chapter 2 in a thick atmosphere of suspicion, prejudice, and a psychological standoff with no end in sight. The wind chimes hanging in front of the cafe ring sharply in the quiet air of a Manhattan corner. The long hiss of an espresso machine creates a cloud of white steam and a dense aroma. The steady clicking of a silver spoon against a porcelain cup. Click, click, click. One day, after being released on bail, New York looks at me through a different lens. Manhattan, once bustling, now feels like an arena where I am the beast backed into a corner. The pale afternoon sun filters through the cafe glass, casting weak streaks of light across the wooden table. Sitting across from me is no longer the panicked, sobbing woman from the apartment hallway. Mrs. Higgins sits there, powerful and devious, in a luxury black dress. Her eyes are hidden behind expensive sunglasses, masking a growing greed. Mrs. Higgins' deep, slow, and calculating voice. I know you are an educated person, Jordan Sterling, a talented piano teacher with a long list of students from elite families. You are certainly smart enough to understand that reputation is the most valuable yet fragile asset in Manhattan. It is like an expensive crystal mirror. One headline, one fierce accusation on television, or even a malicious rumor. Your entire career, honor, and future built over 10 years will turn to dust in less than 10 seconds. Do you want to see yourself become an outcast? A ghost that no one dares to look at? The porcelain cup is placed onto the saucer softly, but with a decisive thud. Mrs. Higgins, we are both busy people, and I am not in the habit of wasting time on flowery introductions. You called me to this quiet cafe, picking a corner away from security cameras, certainly not to discuss the philosophy of a career or the value of a reputation. Drop the empty threats and get straight to the core. What is the number you want to end this play? Give me a price for your silence. Mrs. Higgins, smiling triumphantly, she slowly takes a paper from her handbag and slides it toward me. $150,000, a figure that matches your status and the pain my daughter has endured, wouldn't you agree? You should see this as a very small price to buy back absolute freedom and restore your crumbling honor. Just sign this civil compensation agreement, confirming there was a romantic misunderstanding, and transfer the $150,000 to my account tonight. Lily will file to withdraw all charges at the police station. We will tell the public it was an unfortunate misunderstanding caused by her extreme panic and misidentifying someone in the dark. You walk away clean. You can go back to your piano, keep teaching those rich kids, and live the aristocratic life you enjoy. A fair trade, don't you think? The rustle of the paper as I pick it up, scanning through the meticulously drafted lines. $150,000 for a pathetic, clumsy script filled with logical holes. You define my freedom and honor with a specific number, while you are the one who heartlessly used lies to tear it apart in front of the world. Mrs. Higgins, I wonder while you were calculating this figure, did you ever spend a single second thinking about the probability of rotting in a prison cell for extortion and slander? Under United States law, these are crimes that could cost you much more than $150,000. Mrs. Higgins smirking, her voice becoming harsh and threatening. Are you trying to threaten me with the law, Jordan? Don't be so naive. Who do you think the jury will believe? A grieving mother protecting her daughter, or a man with a distorted appearance who was labeled a predator by all of Manhattan last night? Don't forget who holds the upper hand in the eyes of the public. Out there, thousands are starving to see you punished. If I shed just a few more tears on national television tonight, you won't have a single place to hide. Your reputation died the moment those handcuffs locked onto your wrists. What you are buying now is not honor, but a chance not to be torn apart by violent inmates in a New York prison every night. How long do you think that fragile, academic body of yours will last in a filthy cell? Don't let pride kill your last chance. $150,000 or total collapse. Choose. The flick of a lighter, then the soft sound of a flame burning from my Zippo. Internal monologue. I stare at the guilty agreement on the table. A perfect trap. A double-edged sword. If I sign, it becomes indirect but powerful evidence that I am actually guilty and trying to use money to cover it up. But if I don't, this greedy woman will push the smear campaign to the limit to destroy me. However, Mrs. Higgins made one fatal miscalculation in this game. She thinks I am afraid of the darkness, but she doesn't know I am the one born in the shadows of numbers. The micro recorder hidden in my vest pocket has captured every breath, every word of this brazen extortion. You are writing your own arrest warrant, Mrs. Higgins. The sharp sound of paper tearing decisively. Rip, rip, rip. Mrs. Higgins, standing up in a rage, the wooden chair crashing against the floor. What the hell are you doing? Are you insane, Sterling? Do you have any idea what you just threw away? You just signed the death warrant for your own career. I calmly dropping the scraps into the ceramic ashtray. I never pay a single cent for cheap lies. Mrs. Higgins, $150,000 might be a large number for your family's debts, but the price of my truth and honor is priceless. You picked the wrong opponent for your extortion game. I am not your prey. I am the one who will end this play on my terms. Mrs. Higgins, gritting her teeth, her voice a fierce whisper. Fine, if you want to commit social suicide, I will help you. Tomorrow morning, every major newspaper in New York will be filled with the face and crimes of the rapist Jordan Sterling. I will make sure you have no life left. Not a single person who dares to look at you or hire you on this island of Manhattan. Enjoy your last hours of freedom, because hell is waiting for you. The thud of high heels, angry and heavy on the wooden floor as she storms out, the wind chimes ring once more and then abruptly go silent. I remain alone in the dark corner of the cafe, slowly taking a sip of coffee that has gone cold and bitter. This silence is not cowardice or surrender. It is the gathering of a storm about to wash away every lie. She wants to use the public to execute me on the scaffold of prejudice. Then I will let the public push her onto the very guillotine she worked so hard to prepare. The probability of a greedy and blind person stopping when they see $150,000 is 0%. And the probability of her falling into the trap of justice I have set is exactly 100%. The battle has just begun. Somber, dark, and lonely piano music pushes forward, ending Chapter 3 in extreme tension. A phone vibrates incessantly on a wooden table. Text, message, notifications chime without pause. The sound of a television from the neighbor's apartment filters through the wall with a reporter's harsh morning news voice. 7 a.m. in Manhattan. One day, after the failed negotiation at the cafe, Mrs. Higgins kept her cruel promise. A systematic destruction of my reputation has begun. I sit in the darkness of my apartment, the only light coming from a phone screen flooded with glowing red headlines. The predator masquerading as a piano teacher, the horrifying truth behind Jordan Sterling's elegant appearance. New York media doesn't need verification. They only need the mob's outrage in exchange for views. A heavy, violent pounding on the door shakes the entire hallway. Sterling, are you in there? I am the building manager. I am here to notify you that the board has decided to unilaterally terminate your lease immediately. We cannot have an accused sex offender living in this luxury complex. You have 12 hours to pack your things and get the hell out. Don't make us call the police for a forced eviction and throw your belongings onto the sidewalk. The manager's footsteps fade away, leaving a heavy and suffocating silence. I step out onto the balcony. On the street below, several paparazzi are aiming their lenses at my window like loaded muzzles. I can see the contemptuous glares of neighbors passing by. Absolute isolation in the heart of New York. This is social death. No need for a court verdict. The mob's prejudice has already hanged me in my own home. A voice message plays with a mechanical click. Hello, Jordan. I am calling to inform you that the conservatory is suspending all your classes immediately. The parents have signed a collective petition demanding you be kept away from their children. We cannot risk the Academy's reputation for your disgusting scandal. Do not return until there is a final verdict, though I think you know your career is already over. The phone cuts off with a heartless click. I put the phone down. 10 years of effort. Thousands of hours of practice until my fingertips bled. Everything collapsed in a single morning because of a lie worth $150,000. I move toward the piano in the center of the room. My fingers glide lightly over the cold black and white keys. I am not playing a glorious piece. I am playing the deepest, most melancholic notes to mourn my own honor. The piano music sounds dull and lost in the empty apartment. The probability of an ordinary person going insane in this situation is 99%. The collapse of social relationships is the most brutal weapon humans ever invented. Mrs. Higgins thinks that by cutting off my livelihood and dignity, I will crawl to her and beg her to take the $150,000. She wants me so exhausted that I will accept a false sentence in exchange for peace, but she forgets a rule of psychology. When a person has nothing left to lose, they become incredibly dangerous. I don't feel fear. I feel a strange stillness. The stillness of a hunter waiting for the prey to step into the center of the trap I have set from the shadows. A hard object hits the balcony glass with a clatter. A stone falls onto the floor. Get out, freak. We don't need people like you in Manhattan. Give Lily her justice back. I stand up, calmly drawing the curtains. Manhattan has decided I am public enemy number 1. Fine, I will play that role until the very last minute. I take out a notebook, recording the timestamps of every firing call, every threat. Every insult today will be a valuable piece of evidence in court. Mrs. Higgins wants to push me into hell, but she doesn't know that I am the one who designed the map for that very hell. The doorbell rings again, but this time it is soft and rhythmic. 3 short knocks, 2 long. Jordan, it is me, Morgan. How long are you going to leave an old classmate standing out here among these crazed paparazzi? The door lock turns with a click. Light from the hallway floods into the dark apartment. I look at the woman standing at the door. Morgan Thorne, my law school classmate from years ago, now a renowned attorney known as the Wolf of the New York legal world. A rare, slight smile appears on my lips. Morgan steps into the room, tosses a thick folder onto the table and says, I have seen the news. It is a total mess. But I know you, Jordan. You are the one who calculates every move before the opponent even realizes the game has begun. I am not here to offer condolences. I am here because I know you are holding a variable that can blow this rotten city apart. You are as punctual as ever, Morgan. Are you ready to join me in a lawsuit where the probability of winning is 100%, but the price is the total collapse of a family? Morgan Thorne removes her sunglasses, her gaze as sharp as a razor. That is why I am here. I don't care about Mrs. Higgins' $150,000. I care about seeing her face when your biological truth is exposed before a jury. We are going to make them get on their knees and apologize to you, Jordan. Come in, counselor. We have a lot of work to do before the trial begins. Driving piano music shifts from deep tones to high, powerful, and dramatic notes. Ending, Chapter 4. The sound of paper rustling continuously across the wooden table. The rapid, rhythmic clicking of a laptop keyboard. Manhattan rain begins to drum against the balcony glass, creating a melancholy background hum that isolates the room from the world outside. Morgan Thorne pushes a thick folder toward me, her eyes narrowing under the dim light of the apartment. She speaks in a low, serious voice. Jordan, I have reviewed the district attorney's indictment thoroughly. They are relying entirely on Lily Higgins' testimony and the bruises found on her body. In the eyes of a New York jury, a man standing 5 feet 9 inches tall, wearing a suit, and possessing your apparent physical strength is an undeniable threat. If we walk into court with this appearance, you will lose the moment you step through the door. Their gender prejudice is a wall of steel. I take a sip of cold water, feeling the chill settle in my throat before answering. Prejudice is exactly the variable I anticipated from the beginning, Morgan. Mrs. Higgins and her daughter built a perfect lie based on my physical form. They believe that by simply looking at this suit and this short hair, the world will automatically fill in the blanks and see a violent man. But mathematics doesn't care about emotions, and biology doesn't know how to lie. The sound of a medical bag zipper sliding open, the clink of small glass vials being placed on the table. Morgan looks at the medications and medical records I have pulled out, her expression shifting from shock to a cold admiration. you prepared all of this. Hormonal profiles, chromosome test results, and medical certifications of your physical condition. You have kept this secret for 10 years, just to wait for this moment. I didn't keep it secret to wait for revenge, Morgan. I kept it because I wanted to live a normal life, undefined by the gender labels society imposes. But when they used that very dignity to extort $150,000 from me, they forced open their own Pandora's box. Look at this. Complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. Genetically, I have the XY chromosomes of a male, but my body is completely unresponsive to testosterone. I was born with the physical form of a woman, yet I carry the genetic code of a man. And most importantly, doctors have confirmed that my muscle structure can never achieve the explosive strength of a normal male to cause the restraining bruises described in the indictment. The sound of rain outside grows louder, drowning out the noise of the paparazzi mob still patiently waiting in the building lobby. Morgan Thorne stands up, pacing the room while gripping the folder tightly. This isn't just an alibi, Jordan. This is a nuclear bomb dropped on the judicial system. When we present this evidence in court, Lily Higgins' testimony about being overpowered by a man's strength will collapse like a house of cards. She accuses you of using male muscle to commit violence, but science says you don't even possess that type of muscle. The probability of Mrs. Higgins anticipating this is 0%, Morgan. She was too confident in what she saw. She saw someone in a suit, tall, acting decisively, and she defaulted to man. That is the biggest flaw in her $150,000 plan. She sold a demon to the media, and I am going to show them that the demon only exists in the imagination of a greedy woman. The sound of Morgan Thorne laughing, a sharp, predatory laugh like a hunting wolf. You really are a logic monster, Jordan. You let them destroy your reputation, let the building evict you, and let the conservatory suspend you. All of it was just to push public outrage to its peak, so that when this truth is revealed, the reversal will create a seismic shockwave. You don't just want to be cleared, you want Mrs. Higgins and everyone who threw stones at you to pay the highest price possible. My social death is the price I accept to buy the permanent destruction of the lie, Morgan. On the day of the trial, I want you to demand an independent medical examination right there at the scene, in front of the press. We won't argue about whether I was there or not. We will argue about whether I am even capable of committing that crime. When the jury realizes they have been led by the nose by Mrs. Higgins for a month, their fury will turn around and crush her. The sound of the piano beginning to play. This time, it is no longer deep, melancholic notes, but high, cold tones, sharp and calculated. Morgan gathers the files, giving me one last look before leaving. All right, old friend, get ready for the biggest performance of your life. I will handle the legal procedures to ensure no one can block this evidence from coming to light, Mrs. Higgins' $150,000 will soon become a prison sentence for her, for first-degree slander and extortion. I stand silently in the dark apartment, watching Morgan's silhouette disappear behind the door. Manhattan is still out there, screaming for justice for a lie. They don't know that real justice is being calculated with biological formulas and unforgiving numbers. The final variable has been activated, and this game, from the very second it began, has only ever had one result. The piano music ends with a high, echoing note, as sharp as the sound of shackles hitting the floor, ending Chapter 5. The frantic murmurs of hundreds of people in the Manhattan courtroom create a chaotic hum like a disturbed beehive. Camera shutters from the press gallery at the back fire incessantly, and flashes strobe every time I move. The air is thick with hatred and judgment. Mrs. Higgins sits in the front row of the plaintiff's section, clutching a handkerchief, still playing the role of a grieving mother, waiting for justice to be served. The judge slams his gavel hard against the bench. Bang, bang, bang. Order. This court is now in its final session. The prosecution may present its closing statement. The prosecutor stands up, his voice sharp and directed straight at the jury. Your Honor, members of the jury, we have before us a 19-year-old victim suffering from severe psychological trauma. We have the bruises on her arms, bruises that forensic experts confirm were caused by the superior physical strength of an adult male. The defendant, Jordan Sterling, with this build and this height, perfectly matches the victim's description. The $150,000 in damages requested by the plaintiff is a small price to pay for such shattered dignity. The murmurs flare up again. Contemptuous glares from the jury hit me like arrows. Mrs. Higgins looks at me, a slight triumphant smirk flitting across her face. She believes she has the win in her hand. A tall person in a suit facing off against a fragile girl, it is an image powerful enough for a jury to convict without a second thought. Morgan Thorne stands up, calmly adjusting the files on her desk. Your Honor, the defense does not deny that the bruises on Lily Higgins are real. We do not deny the public's outrage. But we deny the most fundamental element, my client's physical capability to commit this act. I request the court's permission to present the final medical evidence and conduct an independent examination right here, in this courtroom. The prosecutor smirks. A medical examination? He is a healthy man. That is as obvious as the sun rising in the east. This is nothing but a waste of the court's time. Morgan Thorne ignores the prosecutor, looking directly at the judge with razor-sharp focus. Your Honor, prejudice is a form of blindness. Science does not care about a suit or a haircut. I request the disclosure of medical file number 0215, belonging to Jordan Sterling. The sound of paper flipping echoes in unison across the room as Morgan's assistants distribute the documents to the jury. A deathly silence begins to descend. Audible gasps of shock ripple through the jury box. Morgan Thorne raises her voice, each word cutting through the lies like a scalpel. My client, Jordan Sterling, has complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. Genetically, Jordan has XY chromosomes. But biologically and physically, Jordan is female. Her body cannot process testosterone, which means her muscle structure and explosive strength can never reach the levels of a male, as described in the indictment. She physically could not have caused those bruises through male strength, simply because she does not possess it. The crowd erupts like a tsunami. Mrs. Higgins bolts upright, her face distorted with horror. What on earth is this? He is a man. Look at him. You are lying. This is a scam. The judge bangs his gavel repeatedly to suppress the chaos. Order. Order in the court. Defendant, please, step forward. I stand up, removing my suit jacket, leaving only a simple white shirt. I look straight into the eyes of Mrs. Higgins, who is shaking uncontrollably. You were too confident in your prejudice, Mrs. Higgins. You saw this height and this hair, and you invented a violent man to extort $150,000. You never imagined that the target you chose was a variable far beyond your understanding. Morgan Thorne delivers the final blow. Your Honor, the results of an independent examination by the court's physician during the recess will confirm this. But more importantly, we have the audio recording of the meeting at the cafe, where Mrs. Higgins set the price of $150,000 to withdraw the charges. A true victim does not put a price tag on her dignity before a trial even begins. The cameras flash like a madness. Reporters begin typing headlines that will change everything. Shocker. Biological truth revealed. The $150,000 extortion plot collapses. Mrs. Higgins collapses into her chair, her handkerchief slipping from her hand. Lily Higgins, sitting beside her, begins to sob hysterically. But these are not the tears of a victim. They are the tears of an accomplice, realizing the game is burnt to ash. The final strike of the judge's gavel rings out, dry and heavy. After reviewing the biological evidence and the extortion recording, this court finds the defendant, Jordan Sterling, not guilty on all counts. This court also orders the prosecution to initiate proceedings against Mrs. Higgins for first-degree slander, extortion, and perjury. The courtroom explodes. The mob that previously wanted to hang me now turns toward Mrs. Higgins with intensified fury. I stand in the center of the storm, feeling a sense of relief mixed with bitter irony. My reputation was destroyed, my home taken, my career suspended, but the truth remains standing on the foundation of numbers and cellular structure. Morgan Thorne approaches, tapping me lightly on the shoulder. You won, Jordan. The city of New York owes you an apology. I look out the courtroom window, where the Manhattan rain has stopped, leaving puddles that reflect a brilliant light. I don't need an apology, Morgan. I just need the world to understand that the probability of a lie surviving long-term is 0% when it faces an unchangeable variable. That variable is the truth. The sound of the piano begins to play powerful, decisive, and filled with commanding chords that completely drown out the noise of the world, ending the story in the total victory of logic and biological nature. The faint click of a key turning in the lock of an old apartment door. This is no longer the luxury high-rise in Manhattan, but a small, modest unit on the edge of Brooklyn. The distant wail of a subway horn echoes in the background, creating a new rhythm for my life. A week after the trial that shook the city, the world has shifted its axis, but I have chosen to stand outside its orbit. I set the morning newspaper down on the table. The image of Mrs. Higgins being escorted from the courtroom, her face shielded from the cameras, sits right on the front page. A prison sentence for first-degree extortion and slander is the price she paid for her obsession with that $150,000. The media, those same people who once wanted to tear me apart, now praise me as an icon of justice and resilience. Public apologies from the conservatory and the old building management flood my inbox, but I don't respond to any of them. The doorbell rings, interrupting my thoughts. It is that same familiar rhythm. 3 short knocks, too long. How much longer do you plan on hiding here, Jordan? The entire city is looking for you. The late-night talk shows are willing to pay double that $150,000 just for you to appear and talk about your biological variable. I open the door to let Morgan Thorne in. She looks just as sharp as she did in court, but her eyes soften slightly when she sees the old rented piano sitting in the center of the room. I pour a cup of tea, the steam rising in delicate swirls. Morgan, you know I don't care about that spotlight. Fame is just a noise variable in my equation. I have already obtained what I needed. The truth has been restored to its proper place. Morgan sits in the armchair across from me, removes her sunglasses, and looks at me intently. You are still the coldest person I've ever known. You calculated Mrs. Higgins' total collapse perfectly. But did you calculate what you're going to do next? The conservatory wants to invite you back as a professor emeritus. The parents of your old students are protesting in front of your former home, begging for you to teach their children again. Are you really going to throw away 10 years of a career? Those 10 years ended the night I was handcuffed, Morgan. Those people don't need me. They need a teacher with a clean reputation. When they thought I was a monster, they shunned me. Now that they know I'm a victim, they idolize me. That idolization is just as toxic and irrational as the hatred was. I don't want to build a future on a foundation as shifty as the emotions of a mob. The sound of the piano ripples through the air as I lightly play a few improvisational notes. The sound is clearer and more ethereal than ever before. Morgan sighs, but a deep sense of empathy flickers in her eyes. So, what is the next plan for the Jordan Sterling variable? Do you intend to stay here and play the piano for the subway trains? I will teach, but not in Manhattan, and not under the name Jordan Sterling that the media is hunting for. I found a small music school for children with disabilities in Queens. There, people don't care about the suit I wear, or my chromosomes. They only care about the music that can soothe a soul. That is the final variable I've been searching for, an existence that doesn't need to be proven to anyone. Morgan stands up, smiling as she places a new folder on the table. Fine. I respect your decision. This is the finalized paperwork for the seizure of Mrs. Higgins' assets as compensation for your defamation. This amount is enough to sustain that music school for a lifetime. I got it back every cent, including that $150,000 she craved so much. Thank you, Morgan, for not looking at me as a number, but as a friend. Morgan walks toward the door but stops, turning back to look at me one last time. Jordan, do you ever regret revealing your biological secret to the whole world? There's no way back to being a normal Jordan Sterling anymore. The probability of being a normal person was 0% from the moment I was born, Morgan. I don't regret it. Because at least, from now on, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a variable in hiding. I see myself. The sound of the door closing softly. I sit down at the piano as the Brooklyn sunlight filters into the room, warm and real. I begin to play a new piece. There are no melancholic low notes of injustice, no sharp high notes of revenge. There are only melodies that are gentle, profound, and free. The sound of the piano blends with the wind and the bustling life outside, creating a symphony of liberation, ending the story, where the variable is no longer an unknown to be solved, but a constant of freedom. The sound of an old notebook being flipped open, the light scratch of a pencil on paper, recording the final lines of a formula. Streetlights filter into the room, casting long shadows across the piano keys. In mathematics, there are variables that change an entire equation, but there are also constants that stand firm regardless of external forces. My life was once a series of noise variables, social prejudice, an androgynous appearance, and the $150,000 greed of Mrs. Higgins. But in the end, the only constant remaining is the truth. The sound of a subway train passing by, causing the window frame to vibrate slightly. Manhattan remains the same, a giant machine that crushes those who refuse to conform to the labels it imposes. People ask me if I won. Legally, yes. Financially, the $150,000 returned to its rightful place. But humanly, this victory was a painful dissection. I had to expose my deepest biological nature before millions of curious eyes, just to prove I wasn't a monster. The sound of children laughing from the hallway of the new apartment, clear and innocent. Tomorrow, I will begin my first lesson at the music school in Queens. The children there don't look at me as a biological variable or a famous victim. To them, I am simply the person who will teach them how to turn pain into music. In that place, I don't need to calculate the probability of betrayal or hatred. The piano begins to play a piece never heard before. The melody is gentle yet vibrant, like a sprout blooming after a storm. I glide my fingers over the keys, feeling the vibration travel from the wood to my skin. All numbers are meaningless now in the face of this freedom. Mrs. Higgins lost because she thought money and prejudice could warp reality. She didn't understand that no matter how hard you try to manipulate the numbers, the answer of truth remains singular. I look down at my hands carrying a male genetic code, but a female structure, hands that are both soft and resilient. They were not born to attack, they were born to create beauty. That is the highest logic of creation, which no indictment can ever distort. The piano music rises higher, blending with the sounds of the city, no longer lost, but part of the breath of life itself. Ending an equation is not about finding the final number. It is about finding balance within the soul. Jordan Sterling, piano teacher, master of variables, has now become a free constant in the heart of New York. The piano music ends with a warm, echoing, and peaceful chord. The $150,000 game has ended, but the shadows of social prejudice remain. Jordan Sterling chose to disappear to find freedom. But what about you? Can you recognize the hidden variables in the world around you? Like this video if you believe that justice always prevails, and share it to spread the word about this shocking biological truth. We'll see you in the next case file, where numbers never lie.